Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze is sponsored by Dork Publishing, expanding minds through fantasy since 2018. Learn more at the Dork Publishing website, www.dorcpublishing.com.
Welcome back to Desertwood Days, and I'm your host, Kathy Blaze. Today we have one of Arizona's amazing, talented artists that I'd like to introduce you to. If you don't already know him, let's welcome Mr. Jim Covarrubias. Hello.
Hello.
Long time no see, sir. Good to see you. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure to have you here on Desertwood
Well,
Days.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I see you've been busy.
I'll tell you. Yeah,
Busy is
new
good.
projects.
Yes. One thing that I love about you, Jim, is that you don't do things just to do them. There's always a reason behind it. There's always a purpose behind it.
I like doing things that way. You know, I like
Yes.
kind of giving a message, a lesson, if you will.
Yes. So before we get to all these massive projects that you've worked on, I want to know a little bit about Jim first. Just give
Okay.
us a little bit of bio about the young Jim. How did you get started in artistry?
Well, I grew up in Kingman, Arizona. I was very fortunate to have a teacher there, Mike McCleve, who had been an illustrator in New York, came out to escape all that, and he lived in Kingman. So the students there, along with me, got some great teaching from a guy who was really famous and really could do anything with art.
Wonderful.
And so he took a lot of time with us and gave us a lot of techniques. So we kind of had a foot up. I did my first mural in the 5th grade.
Wow.
And so I was really interested in art all the way through. Being Native American, my family was very involved in being creative. Almost anything
Right.
they did.
Right.
And they're basically ranchers, but, they're always carving things and making things, and they'd rather make it than buy it.
Right. So you were always around creatives.
I was very
Yeah.
fortunate that way.
Yes. So were there any artists in your family? Like your
There
mom or
are
dad?
some big
or-
artists in my family. Yeah, my great uncle Miguel Covarrubias was married to Rosa Rolanda Covarrubias, and they were best friends of Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo.
Okay.
So there was a lot of that, and a lot of that was kind of a lineage that was almost overwhelming as a kid. So, but I did do copies of Diego Rivera's and Miguel Covarrubias's for my grandfather when I was a kid,
Oh,
and he'd give me pointers, on like copying a portrait from a photo.
uh-huh.
And you can't get the eyes right. He say flip it upside down and do it that way. That way you're just thinking about the light and dark.
Right.
So there was tricks like that I learned.
Oh, so it's
the-
learning the tricks.
And tricks are techniques, so
Yeah.
they can be important.
Yes. So you were born and raised in Kingman, Arizona.
Mhm.
Another native. Woo, woo.
There you go.
So what brought you down into the Phoenix area?
Well, I went into the Army, and after the Army, I came down to ASU, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. So I took some art classes, and when I was in my first painting class, the teacher set up a still life and said, in 2 weeks, I want to see the paintings done with this. And so he's going around the class talking to people, and I did the painting, and he comes to me and he says, okay, everybody, come here in 2 weeks. I want your painting to look like this. So he said, paint whatever you want to paint. And everybody's very kind to me at ASU. I started to really get involved in it. And it's kind of like when you're good at something and you get that sort of condoning from the higher ups, the professors and whatnot,
Yeah.
it sort of makes you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So I was good at it. I liked doing it, and it just is a big discovery for me.
So as an artist, is there I know you do a lot of portraits of people.
Mm-hmm.
Is there things that you stay away from?
No, I do all kinds of art, including abstract. You see in the latest book of my art that there's all kinds of art. A lot of it's allegorical. A lot of it can be a response. Like I say, sometimes I attach things to it, and I've responded to, for instance, the Ukraine War. I'm doing a series on the Ukraine War. I responded to some of the shootings that have been happening in the United States and
Right.
sort of honoring the victims, if you will, and trying to take that message to people to say how precious everybody is and how important a small story can be to us once we know the details of it.
So you went from this ASU student that you knew you were good back then because
Yeah.
your teachers.
Getting A's.
Yes. So when did you get to a point where, say, Jim Covarrubias' name was well known and he was the person in this Arizona industry that did artwork and that's wanted to be looked up to?
I'm not exactly sure when that happened. I mean, it's getting better all the time, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. You know, I had my own TV series when I got out of college, and I went to famous artists, you know, Fritz Scholder and Bob McCall and Paulo Solari, and I convinced them to let me do a television program on them. And that was sort of my first brush with the people who were already making money with art. I learned a lot from them, even about how to present yourself as an artist and how to have a price ready for people. Somebody says, how much is a painting worth? And you want to have a price for them.
Right.
And you kind of have to look at your client to say, you know, I know they can't afford this, but I need to sell a
Right.
painting, so I'll give them that price. But I think that that whole idea of being part of the art business world helped me a lot. I went to Europe a couple of times and seeing the artists over there, seeing the techniques, getting into a museum and just studying Rembrandt or Van Gogh was really enlightening.
What was that like for you, a little boy born in Kingman, Arizona, going to Europe?
It was overwhelming. I mean, a lot of things you do are out of your bailiwick, so it's kind of like unusual. But these are the beautiful things that challenge you as a human, as an artist, as a
Right.
writer. I'm all that now. I think the big surprise for me wasn't that I was going to be making art the rest of my life, it was the writing.
Right.
And that has been a cool thing. You know, my first novel has been made into a movie now,
Right.
Sage Woman.
Right.
So I think that you just have to go along with it and you have to take the challenge. I remember being petrified, getting up and having to explain my art first or do a show at the museum. It was really daunting, and you wonder whether you're good enough to do it. You know, you're going like, "Oh my gosh, there's such great work on the wall here. Am I going to be part of this?"
So you mentioned your first novel, Sage Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that came about?
Yeah, that came about in a very kind of serendipity way. I was doing the television programs at the time, and my producer, Jim Buick, was a collector of books and showed me a Bible that he had collected that had a little entry in the front page on this woman who had, after the Civil War, gone out west and had misadventure and then went on this revenge because they had killed her family and violated her. And there was no much details in there, so I made up the entire story. But I started writing the story. He said, you know, why don't you write something on it and do a few drawings on it? And that really became a journey of me writing. And I realized that I had to put myself into some of the characters' role, their mind.
Right.
And so I kind of did some research on when she might have lived and her back story on her lineage, if you will. And I came up with the character. I started her as a young girl in her mother's kitchen in Kentucky before the Civil War. And it just intrigued me that just like creating a painting, you create a world, you create a vignette of whatever history is or people are. And that's been fascinating to me. I've got two things I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you brought a couple other books here. One, Cocapelli.
That's the opera that I wrote.
This is the opera. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about this? What was it that steered you to write Cocapelli?
Well, you know, I did the artwork for the 9/11 victims at the Kennedy Center. Fritz Scholder and I did. And Fritz Scholder was much more famous than I was at the time. And Fritz was on the back cover and I was on the front cover, which kind of piqued him. He called me and said, why am I on the back cover and you're on the front cover? But it was for both of us, even though he was famous, kind of our first opera to be a part of. So we got to go to see it and all that. And then James Mars wrote that, and James Mars wrote another one on Guadalupe. And I did the artwork at the Phoenix Art Museum to kind of reveal to people some of the icons in that vision of the Virgin Mary. So I got to be more of a part of the production and how they were thinking about it and how they were going to stage it. And it was overwhelmingly beautiful and
Wow.
spiritual and fantastic. And I thought, wow, that is great. So I was talking to Jim again, and I said, I have an idea for one. And a good friend of mine who actually published these books here, Michelle Sarda, said, let's go see this flute player, Carlos Nakai, and see if you get inspired. So we went and saw Carlos, and it was fantastic. And afterwards, I said, the only thing was missing. I wish he would have talked more to us about what the music meant, or what the story behind the music was. So he said, why don't you write something about something Native American? And so I was thinking, well, I'm Taos, I'm Tewa from Taos. So I really didn't know that much about it. We hadn't been there for a couple hundred years for my family.
Wow.
We were all chased out because we revolted against the Spanish.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, well, what can I discover? And I was talking with a friend of mine. He said, the Cocopellis? And then, everybody has them in their fixtures at home and whatnot. They were a hunchback flute player. He said, well, they were actually real people. They were people who carried goods on their back all across America for 1,000 years. And I said, wow, why do, we think of them as magical characters in a sense, kind of like Apollo or Mars or something. So why is that? And he said, well, they disappeared. There was no more big business for them after the big communities up in North America were destroyed because of the drought.
Right.
And I thought, that's fascinating. That's ecology. It's a story of people losing their kingdom, basically, and having to restart. And many people in the world do have that calamity happen to them.
That is true.
So I thought, there's a story there. So I thought, the last Cocopelli.
That was it. But you also have The Spirit of My Land.
Latest book of my art.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, it's a kind of a history of my art, too. So we go back to some of the early ones that I did that were the first ones that I did publicly, and then into the modern ones that I'm doing right now, the series and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot in there. People ask, what kind of style do I paint? Well, I love it all. I love doing a portrait. I love doing an abstract and an allegory. So, and when I start these paintings, a lot of times I'll just splatter the paint on the canvas and then figure it out. I'm like, wow, that looks like a horse. That looks like a person. And that's really kind of a fun thing to do.
I love the colors that sometimes some people may just do grays or dark colors or they have just a signature look. But I love that you have a diverse look.
And I love the way color reacts to another color.
Yes.
You throw a splatter of yellow on a canvas and you throw a splatter of purple and it just like changes everything.
Yeah. So right here, I want to talk about some of the pictures that we're in. We have Vice President Kamala here.
Right. I love her. Great leader. So happy that she has.
So where did this come
Well,
from?
we were talking about ideas for the mural project that I'm doing right now. And one of the ideas is to do an Avenue of Heroes.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do that on 3rd Avenue between Lincoln and Grant.
Okay.
So we were thinking who is worthy of that.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically the murals on most of them are going to pertain to the history of Arizona.
Oh, okay.
But as we get into the contemporary times, what affects us now? Who are our heroes now?
Oh, okay.
So there is the ones who have gone on, like Cesar Chavez and Dr. King, and there's other people who are here and working right now who are heroes.
Right. And can we lift this?
Yeah, let's lift it up that everybody see.
Yes. And besides
This is an homage to the children who died in Ukraine and are dying in Ukraine. So there's a lot of little vignettes in here, like the Christ and the Virgin Mary.
Yes.
There's this like mountain with these elders in front of it and this person climbing the mountain. This kind of eagle coming at this person, whether, I'm not sure, taking the spirit or what, and this dead child being held by a medicine man. And then back here you see another native back here.
Yes.
And this is an old Olmec face that was the first civilization in America to have crops in the city called the Olmecs. Then a couple of almost hidden personages here that are like magical people who are affecting all of this. And in the Native American world, not only are the living affected by all this, but also the spirits. So the people who have gone on, or even for the people from Ukraine, are still a part of our id, if you will, our world.
Wow, this is deep.
Yeah, this is not a simple painting.
No.
Yeah. and I love that, creating an allegory.
So what do we have over there?
Okay, well, one is something for you.
Oh,
This is the poster on the mural project that we're doing right now.
awesome.
And it's called La Rose del Pueblo. La Flor del Pueblo. I forget the
Thank
title.
you.
La Flor del Pueblo.
That is
That's for you.
beautiful. That is beautiful.
And the title implies a flower growing in a town. And that's what each one of these murals are. They're like a flower growing in our town. We're going back to the history, all the way to the Hohokam, all the way to modern times. And as we go through this history, we're hitting all of the high parts and the low parts and the real parts. And I think it's going to be fascinating for people.
But we're going to speed up a little bit because I want to, we have
Another hero,
yes.
a cultural hero.
Beautiful.
There's some people that I love to paint. I don't know how many paintings I've done Billie Holiday and Jimi Hendrix and folks like that.
Yes.
And this one here is the painting I donated for the children's project in Texas for the children who died in Uvalde.
Oh, okay.
And so
That's
they're,
beautiful.
they raffled this off. I need to ship it to the buyer.
Oh.
And that is to help them commemorate these children with a
Right.
series of murals there in Texas.
Oh, thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
So why don't we watch your film now,
Okay.
and you can. This is Sage Woman.
Sage Woman.
Yes.
Yeah, the movie trailer.
Killing. Not murder. Justice.
Her name's Lillian Rose Russell. Apaches, they're calling her the Sage Woman.
They took away everything I loved. And left me for dead.
Comancheros killed her family. They took their liberty upon her. They left her for dead out there in the desert.
But I didn't die.
Somehow she got hooked up with that Mexican gunfighter and that Apache medicine man.
That was their mistake. When I find them, they will surely die.
And Apaches, they think she's some kind of a vengeful spirit sent to rid their land of evil.
When there's nothing to live for, you're not afraid to die.
You took the life of her family away.
We're not going to use me in the movie, but I had to fill in, so it was kind of fun.
So I had to ask this question. So did you use actual natives in? And this is a trailer, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
Alan Tafoya, who's playing the Hickory Apache in the trailer there. And I convinced him to do that. He was a rock and roller.
Uh-huh.
And I went to Santa Fe to visit a friend of mine, and he happened to be playing on stage. So afterward, we all got together and we're partying. I said, dude, why don't you come out to Arizona and appear in this little trailer I'm doing, for a weekend.
Wonderful.
So I convinced him, and now he's got a couple of movies coming out on Netflix. A sad thing is that he's married to Cynthia. Not that he's sad that he's married to Cynthia, but Cynthia
I
Strauss
was
is...
about to say, what?
No, to rephrase that, he's married to a beautiful actress, Cynthia Strauss, who both of them are doing great.
Oh.
But her uncle was one of the people killed in the Parkhurst, their shootings in Illinois,
Yeah.
Highland Park, rather.
Yes.
So it's really kind of sad how that 6-degree separation kind of thing kind of comes into our lives. But no, Alan is Native American. He's actually Hickory Apache, so he's speaking real Hickory.
So what I want to get at also, tell us a little bit about the new project that you're working on.
That Flor del Pueblo is a series of murals, and I'm hiring the artists, and I'm still looking for artists. And it covers the history of Phoenix to contemporary times. The Hohokam lived here for 900 years and abandoned the place basically in the 13th century. And so it wasn't really used really until after the Civil War. People were going to California, nobody's really stopping here until after the Civil War. And some business entrepreneurs cleaned out the canals, hired miners from Wickenburg and the Mexicans and the Indians here to start cleaning out all that and farming again, and became Phoenix. So we're doing that history, and we're doing the history all the way to modern times.
And you know what? That's the history that a lot of people don't know about.
A lot of details in there, and as we were
Yes.
discovering that, I'm writing the material. I'm writing little vignettes on different people, And there was so much there, so many fantastic things, so many connections, like that 6 degree idea. There are connections to other bigger things, other bigger stories, or more fascinating stories. And it just goes on and on. We're still discovering a lot of new stories.
Right. So do you have I'm gonna say a committee of people that's working on this?
I have a team of people.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right. I've got
Right.
my own researcher, and I have a computer designer, and
That is awesome. And
photographer.
that, like I was telling you, that's an area where I grew up in. In the area where you're going to be doing this mural.
Dunbar.
Yes. So you know what? I'm looking forward to it. So if there's anything I can help with, please let me know.
Absolutely.
I mean, because that's you know what? That will always be my home. I
Nice.
mean, no matter where you go, your home is your home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's an area that I see that they're doing a lot of work in, but you know, it's still a lot of work needs to be done.
Right.
But I am not for destroying our history and a lot of the historical buildings and things. I mean, I'm not for them destroying those things.
Yeah, my agent for my art actually is head of the Historical Society now, Ashley Harder. So we are of a like mind. You know, we want to preserve and maybe just change the buildings that are there, change the areas, and then the areas that are vacant, make those available for low-income people to have homes.
Right. So, Jim, where can our audience find you?
My studio's at the Ice House, 4th Avenue in Jackson.
Okay.
I am
websites or on social media.
Yep. It's the website is La Flor del Pueblo or covarrubiascollection.com.
Okay. It was such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us and bringing all this amazing artwork. And thank you for joining us here today at Desertwood Days. We'll catch you next time.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere. And just growing up the way I grew up, and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Luke!
911, where's your emergency?
Everyone's on their way. What happened?